Today on the Word Preacher Podcast, a coat of many colors, prospering under Potiphar and the imprisoned seer. I'm Brett Jensen, and this is the Word Preacher Podcast. Our Come Follow Me curriculum for this coming week will bring us to Genesis 37 through 41. Let's go ahead and get started by talking about the oldest son of Rachel, Joseph. And we'll dig right in with some reading in Genesis 37, 2 through 4. These are the generations of Jacob. Joseph, being 17 years old, was feeding the flock with his brethren, and the lad was with the sons of Bilhah and with the sons of Zilpah, his father's wives. And Joseph brought unto his father their evil report. Now Israel loved Joseph more than all his children, because he was the son of his old age. And he made him a coat of many colors. And when his brethren saw that their father loved him more than all his brethren, they hated him, and could not speak peaceably unto him. All right, so here we have Joseph, the favorite child. Now, there's debate that people have on the meaning of the coat of many colors. I think that's an unimportant debate, whatever it was made of. The point is showing that he was favored by his father over his other brothers. And he really didn't care about fitting in with them. He wasn't afraid to, while he was out with them, tell his father the exact truth about what they were doing, bringing to his father their evil report. Is another thing that did not make him popular. But he didn't care about that. He cared about the truth. Even from an early age, doing what was right was more important than what anyone else was doing, or what was culturally appropriate. And that's important. Of course, he's not going to win himself any favor with his brothers right away. In fact, the next episode, he has two dreams. One in which his brothers' sheaves of grain bowed down to his, and another where the sun, moon, and 11 stars bowed down to him. Now his father rebukes him, but Genesis also records that Jacob observed the saying. The Hebrew term here can also be translated to kept the saying, implying remembrance. He remembered what Joseph had said, and obviously it became important with results that we'll talk about in our Come Follow Me curriculum for the coming week. In terms of his brothers, though, they were just sick of him. Jacob gave Joseph an assignment to go find his brothers. His brothers weren't there. So he pursued them, he found out where they were and went after them. They saw him coming, and his brothers decided, we could just get rid of him. That might be the best strategy. Let's kill him. Let's go ahead and read some of the verses here. And when they saw him afar off, even before he came near unto them, they conspired against him to slay him. And they said one to another, Behold, this dreamer cometh. Come now, therefore, and let us slay him, and cast him into some pit, and we will say, Some evil beast hath devoured him, and we shall see what will become of his dreams. And Reuben heard it, and he delivered him out of their hands, and said, Let us not kill him. And Reuben said unto them, Shed no blood, but cast him into this pit that is in the wilderness, and lay no hand upon him, that he might rid him out of their hands, to deliver him to his father again. So Reuben departs. He's gonna come back later and save him and have it be okay. He doesn't want them to kill their young brother. So Reuben is in the right in this case. He was in the wrong in a few other cases, but in this case, he was the good oldest son of Jacob that was really watching out for Joseph. But he departs. The others decide, while they've thrown him into this pit, what kind of profit are we going to get out of having him in this pit? Why don't we sell him as a slave? So they find some Midianites, some of the children of Ishmael, and sell him for 20 pieces of silver. And they take his coat, dip it in goat blood, and send that to their father. Of course, Jacob is distraught. He just he jumps to the conclusion that his son has been slain, his favorite son. He mourns for many days and refuses to be comforted. But of course, the truth is that Joseph was not dead. The Midianites who purchased him brought him down to Egypt and sold him to a man named Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh's and captain of the guard in Egypt. So he's a wealthy guy, and he decides he's going to have Joseph to serve him. And pretty soon he realizes Joseph is pretty good at what he does. He could have been bitter as, being sold into something that wasn't his fault, deprived of freedom that he should not be. But he doesn't care about that as much as he cares about doing what's right. Here's some reading. Genesis 39, 2 through 5. And the Lord was with Joseph, and he was a prosperous man, and he was in the house of his master the Egyptian. And his master saw that the Lord was with him, and that the Lord made all that he did to prosper in his hand. And Joseph found grace in his sight, and he served him, and he made him an overseer over his house, and all that he had he put into his hand. And it came to pass, from the time that he had made him an overseer in his house, and over all that he had, the Lord blessed the Egyptian's house for Joseph's sake. And the blessing of the Lord was upon all that he had in the house and in the field. So, as the reading continues, Genesis describes Joseph as being well-favored. That has also been interpreted as meaning handsome. And Potiphar's wife certainly noticed him, cast her eyes upon Joseph. So Genesis reads, she tried to seduce him, asking him to lie with her. His response, the response that Joseph gave to her, is important. In verses 8 through 10 in Genesis 39. But he refused and said unto his master's wife, Behold, my master wotteth not what is with me in the house, and he hath committed all that he hath into my hand. There's none greater in this house than I, neither hath he kept back anything from me but thee, because thou art his wife. How then could I do this great wickedness and sin against God? And it came to pass, as she spake to Joseph day by day, that he hearkened not unto her to lie by her or be with her. So we have a daily occurrence where she's trying to wear him down. Also of note, they said that Potiphar really didn't even know what he had anymore. He just, knew that things were good with Joseph, and he didn't even bother supervising anymore. He loved Joseph. And Joseph proves here that he was worthy of his trust. He was honest in what he did. But obviously his wife was a little less than honest. Let's go to our reading, verses 11 through 16. And it came to pass about this time that Joseph went into the house to do his business, and there was none of the men of the house there within. And she caught him by his garment, saying, Lie with me. And he left his garment in her hand, and fled, and got him out. And it came to pass that when she saw that he had left his garment in her hand, and was fled forth, that she called unto the men of her house,
and spake unto them, saying, See, he hath brought in an Hebrew unto us to mock us. And he came in unto me to lie with me, and I cried with a loud voice. And it came to pass, when he heard that I lifted up my voice and cried, that he left his garment with me, and fled, and got him out. And she laid up his garment by her, until his lord came home. So she makes this false accusation then to her husband as well, whose wrath was kindled against Joseph. He was a handsome man. It seemed like he had put too much trust in him, and he had Joseph thrown into prison. Now, of course, this again was another unfortunate circumstance that occurred of no fault, through no fault of Joseph. He hadn't done anything wrong. He'd been honest. He served the Lord. And where did it get him? Thrown into prison. That's got to be disheartening. That's really got to be disheartening. But even in prison, it turns out okay for Joseph. Let's look at some reading. Genesis 39:21 through 23. But the Lord was with Joseph, and showed him mercy, and gave him favor in the sight of the keeper of the prison. And the keeper of the prison committed to Joseph's hand all the prisoners that were in the prison, and whatsoever they did there, he was the doer of it. The keeper of the prison looked not to anything that was under his hand, because the Lord was with him. And that which he did, the Lord made it to prosper. So once again, we have a situation where the Lord is helping him out. Now, it might be difficult for the average person to notice that. He was, perfectly free under his father, and then he was sold into slavery. But the Lord was still with him. Joseph could see that. And he was perfectly honest and good under Potiphar, but then he was thrown into prison for doing nothing wrong. But he could still tell that the Lord was with him. This is a gift, because even when circumstances can change negatively, it's still possible that the Lord can prosper you. Now, even at that time, Joseph did not fully understand how important his position in prison would be, but he was absolutely where he needed to be. God had moved him to this place and was helping him so that he would be able to do something vital for his family, which we'll talk about next week. So, in prison, he comes across two prisoners. Pharaoh had been angry with two of his servants, one of them the chief butler and the other the chief baker, and he had thrown them into prison, and Joseph was given charge over them. Each of them dreamed a vivid dream, and they wanted to have an interpretation. They were troubled. Joseph, having had some experience with dreams himself, offered to hear them and to see if God would help him to know the meaning. So first we have the butler's dream. He dreamed that there was a vine with 3 branches, and they budded and brought forth blossoms and then grapes. And he took the grapes and pressed them into Pharaoh's cup, and put the cup into Pharaoh's hand. Here was the interpretation. The 3 branches are 3 days. He would be restored to his former office and again present wine to Pharaoh, as he had done as the butler before he was imprisoned. The baker, the poor baker that I feel a little bit bad for, he saw that this was a favorable dream. He wanted to know what his was. So he said he had 3 white baskets on the top of his head. And in the top basket there was all sorts of foodstuff for Pharaoh, and the birds came and ate from it. The interpretation was this: the 3 baskets are 3 days. In 3 days, Pharaoh would execute the baker, lift his head up from off of him, put his body on a tree, and the birds would eat his flesh. Not quite as nice a dream, but absolutely memorable. Now, whether the crime that the baker had done was worthy of that It doesn't say, but it was certainly very specific, and it happened exactly as Joseph predicted. The other thing, before the butler was freed, Joseph pled with him this phrase, and I think these are great verses, verses 14 and 15 in Genesis 40. But think on me when it shall be well with thee, and show kindness, I pray thee, unto me, and make mention of me unto Pharaoh, and bring me out of this house. For indeed I was stolen away out of the land of the Hebrews, and here also have I done nothing that they should put me into this dungeon. So Genesis 40 ends saying that the butler did not remember Joseph, but forgot him. I think that this is really applicable. Doesn't the Lord say this very thing to us? Doesn't he plead with us? Think on me when it shall be well with thee. Doesn't he want us to come to him in times that are good as well as in times of need? It's been said, I think quite wisely, there are no atheists in foxholes. When you're in real trouble, when you need help, people, I think, naturally try to go to God. But perhaps we could shed ourselves of the atheism that we experience in any degree in times of comfort, when we're on a vacation, in our leisure time, in times of prosperity, where we might otherwise celebrate ourselves. These are also important times to think on him. Well, it took 2 years before a circumstance arose that caused the butler to remember Joseph. Pharaoh himself, the king of all Egypt, dreamed a pair of dreams. Very vivid, they troubled him. His first dream, 7 fat kine and 7 lean kine, and the lean devoured the fat. And then he saw a second dream, 7 full ears of corn and 7 worn and blasted ears. And the blasted ears of corn devoured the full. And Pharaoh was really disturbed by this, and he gathered all of his wise men for an interpretation. And to his surprise, no one could interpret it. I think that's kind of notable. It seems like if you're a hack, you'd at least give it a stab. You'd do something vague, but no one could. Suddenly, the chief butler called to Pharaoh and explained, I remember, I've done some bad things, and I was in trouble because of what I'd done to Pharaoh. But in prison, I remember this Hebrew who was very skilled at interpreting dreams. I had a dream, and so also did the chief baker, and he predicted what would happen from those dreams perfectly. Well, the result of this bit of news excited Pharaoh. If we read in verses 14 through 16, then Pharaoh sent and called Joseph, and they brought him hastily out of the dungeon, and he shaved himself and changed his raiment, and came in unto Pharaoh. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, I have dreamed a dream, and there is none that can interpret it. And I have heard say of thee that thou canst understand a dream to interpret it. And Joseph answered Pharaoh, saying, It is not in me. God shall give Pharaoh an answer of peace. So Joseph is very quick to give credit to the right source, to God. Joseph explains that the dreams were related. They are one. And that the reason they were repeated is because God wanted to emphasize something important that would shortly come to pass. That there would be 7 years of plenty, like the fat kine and the full ears of corn. And they would be followed by 7 years of famine, represented by the lean kine and the blasted ears of corn. Joseph suggested that Pharaoh appoint a discreet and wise man to manage the storing of food during the times of plenty, that they would be prepared for the times of famine, that they would have enough to eat from that time. Well, this blew everyone away. They were so impressed. The reading shows, and the thing was good in the eyes of Pharaoh and in the eyes of all his servants. And Pharaoh said unto his servants, Can we find such a one as this is, a man in whom the Spirit of God is? And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, Forasmuch as God hath showed thee all this, there is none so discreet and wise as thou art. Thou shalt be over my house, and according unto thy word shall all my people be ruled. Only in the throne will I be greater than thou. That's Genesis 41, 37 through 40. So he gives Joseph another name, Zaphnath Paaneah, which means the God speaks and he lives. Joseph married the daughter of the priest of On, Asenath, and Joseph became second only to Pharaoh. So he starts as, just someone taking care of his father's stuff. He's a favorite son, and he ends up second to Pharaoh in all of Egypt, a kingdom, the only kingdom that was going to survive in this coming famine. This was going to make Egypt very powerful, and here he was at the top of it. In the end, the things that God has in store for you are bigger than what you have to sacrifice to obtain them. Joseph continually kept God first, whether he was a slave, a falsely accused prisoner, or second to Pharaoh for all Egypt. In all conditions, putting God first. And that's vital because you can't control other people that may make your life or your circumstances difficult. But you can put God first and insist on following him regardless of temptations. God will favor them that remember him. Joseph was prepared to do unpopular things that were right from his youth. It's vital that we not procrastinate these types of decisions ourselves. Choose this day to put God first. We appreciate all the support for the Word Preacher podcast. Next week, we will look at Genesis 42 through 50 and discuss the saving of Israel. Of course, there's a ton we did not cover, including an interesting story about Judah and the line that would eventually result in the line of kings. Study those things individually and with your family. And of course, as always, fight on.